Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sporting Max. But today we're joined by Port Adelaide Power legend Chad Corns. Welcome to the podcast, Chad. How are you going at the moment?
Thank you for having me, mate. Appreciate the invite, and I'm going really well. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Now, I see you came and sort of come from a football royalty family with the great Graham Corns. What's it like growing up the son of a legend?
Yeah, we were pretty fortunate being in the position we were as kids. Dad was coach of Glenelg in the SANFL, which was a pretty big deal before the Crows joined the AFL competition. So we would go to Glenelg games every weekend. He'd take us down in the change rooms. We get to hear his pre and post game addresses. Wow. And the players were really, really welcoming to us. They would always include us, have kicks with us, pre-game, halftime. So we're pretty lucky. And then when he got the Crows coaching job, that was the biggest thing that we'd ever known here in South Australia. So to be able to go and meet some of those guys was pretty special too.
How did you find the experience, of the process of the AFL draft, and what did you have to undergo to be drafted?
Yeah, it wasn't as serious as it is now. Obviously, I didn't like going to the draft camp wasn't compulsory back then. So I thought I was a little bit underdone, so I didn't bother going to the draft camp. I really wanted to get drafted, but it wasn't the biggest thing in the world for me at that stage. Even in the back of my mind, I wouldn't have minded another year in the SANFL just to develop a little bit more, because I thought I wasn't quite ready for the AFL. But Port took me at pick 9. It was a lot earlier than I thought I would go, but the best thing that happened to me.
How did you feel when you were announced and going to the Power, obviously sort of staying in your home state?
Yeah, staying in the home state was huge for me. Like, I had a really close network of friends from school, really close to my family. The other team that I'd spoken to was West Coast, so I was pretty certain I was going over to Perth, which couldn't be further away. So when the Power called my name out, I remember the look that Mum gave me. We'd always had a bit of a rivalry, the Corns family, with the Port Adelaide Footy Club. So it was unexpected, but like I said, the best thing that ever happened to me.
So what differences can you sort of see now between sort of when you were drafted in 1997 and then to now in that draft process, like you said, like sort of the draft camp, how you sort of didn't go to that, and now it's probably like compulsory to go to that?
Yeah, the boys come in a lot more, better prepared than what we were back then. I just made the decision with Brad Ottens, who went pick 2, I think, to Richmond back then. He said he wasn't going to the draft camp, so I sort of just jumped on and said I wasn't going either. So if you did that now, you probably just wouldn't be drafted. Like, they're so better prepared when they come in. They can speak well, they understand the media, and obviously just general athletically, they're a lot better prepared than what we were back then.
Can you expand on the environment of coming in on your first day at the Power?
Yeah, I was really nervous because, like I said, Port Adelaide had always hated my dad, and that goes right back to when he was playing v the Port Magpies. So I was unsure how the crowd and some of the people that worked here would treat me. But from day one, I remember my locker was next to Gavin Wanganeen, who was the biggest player in our club probably ever, but especially at that time. He was really welcoming, as were the rest of the boys. And the crowd, I remember we had to do a few fitness tests that day, and somehow I was winning one of them. A bit of adrenaline, but I remember them applauding me as I ran around. So the Port fans have always been great to me right to this day. They're what makes this club so special, and for them to welcome me as they did on that day and treat me so well throughout my whole career has been really special.
You found yourself as a regular key forward in Port's best 22 during sort of the 2000 season and sort of 01, 02 and 03. What was your role and aim as a key forward?
So we had sort of myself and Warren Treadray were the 2 main forwards.
Yeah.
I was a really average set shot for goal. So most of my work was done up the ground, being a bit of that length player, a bit like if you know Tom Lynch from the Adelaide Crows, the way he plays at the moment. So I used to get up the ground a little bit more and give it to the good kicks. So kick it to Treaders inside 50 and he'd kick the goal. So it worked really well for, probably 3 or 4 years. And then I made the move to defence in 04.
How did you feel, and what was your perspective at the time on making that move sort of to the other end of the ground?
Yeah, so we'd had a couple of failed final series, and this was at the end of 03. I went into Mark Williams' office in our end of season review. I felt like he'd lost a bit of, trust in me. And he said, yeah, I probably have. I'm moving into centre half back next year. Go for it. So it was a surprise. It was a shock. I'd only played there once or twice before. So I worked really closely with Dean Bailey, who was our defence coach at that time. He was great for me. We had some key defenders at that time who I learnt a lot off. And I love the move. Sort of surprised how well I adapted to it, and obviously so many good players around me. In 2004 allowed me to play that bit of a loose man role as I did in defence.
Now, obviously, that worked moving to the back line. As you earned yourself an All-Australian and polled for third in the Brownlow. What did those accolades, I guess, or achievements mean to you after sort of putting the hard work in and dedication to your hard work and seeing it sort of reflect?
Yeah, well, like I said, a lot of it was due to the guys I had around me. So Darryl Wakeland, Matthew Bishop, Montgomery, Kingsley, Hardwick, those guys were really sort of, tight one-on-one defenders, which allowed me to do my own thing. And that allowed me to come off and intercept mark. And obviously that caught the eye of some of the umpires who I didn't have a great relationship with for most of my career, to be honest. But getting All-Australian was special because it's just something I never thought I'd be good enough to do. So when I got that was great. But obviously the best thing that ever happened to our club was that year and winning the premiership.
Now, beating the Lions, obviously, by 40 points in that premiership, how did it feel? And can you take me through that experience and the entire grand final and sort of hype-up experience and then the game too?
Yeah, so the week over here is obviously huge with all the media and the attention you get. I remember we trained the Friday night before the game at the MCG, and as a group, we'd never trained worse. Like every ball was hitting the ground.
Oh, no.
I think everyone was just so nervous. So Choco pulled us all in and had a big laugh about it. Just told us to relax, take it in, enjoy the experience. And then, the actual game day itself was a little bit of a blur. I remember when we ran out, the noise of that. I remember when Josh Carr kicked the first goal, the noise of that. And then with about probably 10 minutes to go, it was pretty clear we're gonna win. So I just tried to enjoy that moment. I remember looking around to the fans a fair bit and try to enjoy that with them. And then when the siren went, just looking for Kane, my brother, to take it all in with him. But it was a big relief more than anything else after the failures of the years before.
Like you mentioned, your brother Kane, what was that like to play alongside your brother and win a premiership with him?
Yeah, really special. He was touted as going to the Crows. So when Port called out his name in 2000, that was great just to be able to have him in our home state playing on the same team together. He always looked after me. He always kicked it to me whenever he had the ball. He always handballed it to me whenever he had the ball. So looking back on some of the moments we shared together is really special.
Can you talk me through some of the celebrations that were going on sort of after the grand final?
Yeah, mate, they're pretty tame, to be honest. It wasn't what I expected. I had a girlfriend at the time that I was head over heels with, so I've spent more time with her rather than going out partying with the boys. We had a good night when we got back here on the Sunday. We came back to the footy club and celebrated with the fans, and then went out to a few pubs in Glenelg, which was a good night. But other than that, mate, the whole celebration thing was a bit of a letdown. I was pretty keen to make up for that in 2007, but obviously that grand final didn't go to plan.
Can you take me through that year of 2007 and where you unfortunately couldn't get that win over the Cats?
Yeah, well, no one expected us to make the grand final, including pretty much everyone here at Port. We had a really young team. It was an exciting team. We had some great players, but we just got on a bit of a roll and then won the first two finals and found ourselves in the grand final. We went into that overconfident. Geelong clearly the better team, but for some reason we went in really cocky, overconfident, and probably got taught a big lesson on grand final day.
On grand final day, you went down by something like 119 points. Yeah, what was that like to sort of soak that in, and how did that sort of sit with you guys, and then on sort of your attitude and mentality going into the next year?
It was really embarrassing. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I remember walking off that ground and you cop it from all supporters, both Geelong and your own supporters, and then coming back here. You didn't really want to show your face out in public because of what happened. I think it's the record losing margin in a grand final, which is not a record you want to be a part of.
No.
we didn't review that game properly. We sort of just swept it under the carpet and thought things would happen again in 2008, and it didn't. We never really recovered from that grand final, and it led to a few pretty dark years, in the 2010, 11, and really tough times for the footy club.
Throughout those sort of 2008 to 2010, you had some injuries. What were these injuries, and how did they affect you in terms of your career?
Yeah, okay. What did I have? I snapped a few fingers, and you think fingers are just a little things, but I snapped that one there. You can sort of see it now.
Yeah.
That really affected me because I was, love my marking, love going for my marks, and it's a small thing. You should be able to recover from a finger, but that affected my confidence a bit. Had a punctured lung, had a shoulder operation, and a few knee surgeries as well. So
wow,
it took its toll. I should have dealt with them better. You should be able to play with injuries like that, but in the end, I never really recovered and got back to the form of 07 after those surgeries.
In August 2011, you decided to retire from the game. How did that decision, approach you, and was it an easy one to make?
Well, it's pretty easy when the club tells you they don't want you anymore. That's how.
Yeah.
The club were going in a different direction. I had some great years here, and looking back on it, that when GWS called me, it was halfway through that year of 2011. I came in and played a few games support. I was playing okay, but only playing because Jay Schultz was injured. Played more SANFL footy that year. I still thought I had a year or two left in me. So when Mark Williams rang me and asked me if I would be keen to join GWS, I was nervous. Didn't really want to leave Adelaide. I love Adelaide and love, like I said before, my friends and family. But it was a great move, and I'm really thankful for GWS because they treated us so well as soon as we got up there.
Now at GWS, you played like an assistant playing coach. What's it sort of involved, I guess, in that role of being a coach, but then also being on field and playing with the guys?
Yeah, they're obviously a really young group. They were pretty much a group made of 18-year-olds. So they invited, it was myself, Dean Brogan, Luke Power, James McDonald to come along. And it was about setting a good example, showing the boys how to train hard, just being professional, and then just sort of sticking up for them on game day because they were so young. It taught me a lot about dealing with the younger generation. It's something I didn't do that well when I was at Port. So just socialising with these young guys, getting to know these young guys. They're a really professional group. They did everything right. So it was, like I said, I'm really thankful that we got the opportunity to go up there.
What was the experience like at GWS of playing with sort of a reasonably new team?
Yeah, we got some big beatings. Like we lost games by 150 points and stuff like that. But no one thought we'd win a game first year. And we won a couple. I remember the first game we won against the Gold Coast. That was a really special moment. The joy in those boys' faces after the sign went was really special. And then, we beat my old team Port, later on in the year, which led to Matty Primus and the president getting sacked. So that was a weird day. I thought I'd really love it if we, GWS beat Port. But, looking around after that game and seeing the looks on some of my old teammates' faces, seeing the look on my brother Kane's face, the club was in a bad spot. So I didn't enjoy that win as much as I thought. But looking back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to Port Adelaide. Like it led to Ken Hinkley coming in, led to David Koch coming in. So it was a real turning point for the club.
In 2013, you officially, retired from AFL and took on a full-time coaching role with GWS. How did sort of, retiring once again come about, and then also taking on a full-time coaching role instead of like sort of player coach?
Yeah, I had a knee operation at the end of 2012. The surgeon was really confident that I still had a couple of years left in me, and I was loving playing up there with those guys. But that knee got infected, which is not a good thing, getting a knee infected post-surgery. So I was in hospital for weeks after that, and it just never really recovered. I could never run properly after that infection. So that retirement was forced. Really lucky to have the 2 years I did on the list up there, and thankful that Leon Cameron and the rest of the team up there kept me on in a coaching role, which I wasn't ready to be a line coach then, but I learned a lot. Leon was great. Sheeds was great. Choco was great when they were there. and just the board of GWS and Dave Matthews and people like that were really good to me. And it was, besides being drafted to Port, going up there was one of the best moves I ever made.
You've been the Port Adelaide Magpies coach for a few years now in the SANFL. What tactics do you bring into play, I guess, in a SANFL team?
Yeah, so when I came back from GWS, I got offered the Magpies, the coaching role. So I did that for 2 years. And it's pretty much the Magpies are just like the Powers reserves.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it like that. It made up with a few other contracted boys you get from throughout Adelaide. So you pretty much just follow the Powers game style. You can tweak it a little bit, but Kenny wants to make sure that guys that come in
know their role,
play their role, know the game plan, and you're playing the same way as the Power. So you don't have to come up with too much because you pretty much just copy what the Power boys are doing. But again, learned a lot in that role. We made the grand final in 2017, but lost by a point to Sturt. So that was shattering. But now I'm just still a development coach here at the Power, but look after the forward line in the Magpies on game day.
How did that opportunity of being a line coach and a development coach at the Power present itself?
Josh Carr, who was coaching here at the Power, got a job coaching North Adelaide in the SANFL. So I think it was Kenny Hinkley rang me while I was still coaching at GWS and asked me if I wanted to come back. And it was always a dream to come back and work in Port Adelaide. Like, I loved Sydney, it was great, but I always wanted to come back and live in Adelaide. So when I got that call, jumped at it, and still here, learn a lot. We've got a really great coaching staff over here that I learn a lot from and a really good playing with. So great to be home.
Who's the best player that you, from your perspective, who you think you've played with on a team over your career?
Played with. So Warren Treadray, sorry, we'll get it out right. He's the best player I ever played with. Just a gun centre half forward. If he was playing in Melbourne, I reckon he would have got a few more accolades, a bit more credit than he did playing over here. But he was right up there with Jonathan Brown, Nick Rewalt, those kind of guys. He was an absolute gun. And then you obviously have Gavin Wanganeen, who was a really special player. And, Kane, like I said, really lucky to play with him. He wasn't the best player I've ever played with, but probably one of the most determined and one of the hardest trainers I've ever played with. So played with some really good players.
Who's the best opponent who you've had to play on defensively and sort of in the forward line too?
Yeah, the battles with Jonathan Brown were some good ones. He beat me a few times. I got him a couple of times, but I loved the way he played. I loved how tough and aggressive he was. So playing on him, they were special moments. Nick Rewalt was the best player. The most trouble I ever had as a defender was playing on Nick Rewalt. Couldn't keep up with him. He destroyed me a couple of times. Made me look silly in a prelim final once. Lucky we won, but he was just a freak athlete. And as a forward, I couldn't get a kick on Simon Prestigie Como, who used to play for Collingwood. He wasn't a big name, but one of those guys you would have loved to play with. He was just hard and tough and didn't give you any space. So could never get a kick on him. So he's probably the best sort of defender I played on as a forward.
What's that like to, I guess, play on Rui and try and keep up with him?
Well, you realise pretty early on that you're going to need some help from your teammates. You're going to need help from the boys in the midfield, up the ground, putting a bit of pressure on so it's not coming lace out to him, because he's a freak athlete. Not only can he run all day, he's really quick off the mark. And he's big and powerful, so he had it all. And like I said, he caused me some real trouble.
I reckon he could still probably play now. What do you think? Now, if we flick back a little bit to that, like you mentioned before, Jonathan Brown having a couple of good battles with him. Now, in that 2004 grand final that we touched on before, you kept him to like one behind. So how did you feel about keeping such a great sort of player and forward and goal kicker like Jonathan Brown?
Yeah, I was so nervous going into that grand final because I knew I had to play on him, obviously. And all my week was just spent worrying about him. Like, I wasn't thinking about my own game enough. He got a big knock on his knee in the prelim final when he was playing against Geelong. Still unsure if he was going to get up for the game. Even in the pre-game warm-up, I was just searching the ground to see if he was out there warming up. And he wasn't actually out there warming up. For me, I was lucky because he didn't have the same movement as he normally did. You know, if he didn't have that knock, he had a lot of pain-killing injections in that knee. So that was one of the main reasons why he was kept to 1 point. And obviously our midfield played really well that day, and the ball wasn't coming in
Their forward line.
That free flowing. And Daryl Lakeland also did a brilliant job on Alistair Lynch, keeping him goalless as well. So it was, it's a cliche, but it was a real team effort, that grand final day.
Who's the best player who you've worked with as a coach?
Right. Robbie Gray. He's my favourite. Really good mates with him, really close with him, but some of the stuff he's done
Insane player.
Field, he's saved us so many times. He's still doing it. He kicks clutch goals. He's a really special player. One coming through now, though, is Zach Butters. Some of the stuff he does at training and out on the field, you sort of shake your head. I haven't really seen a player like him. So disappointing he's out injured at the moment, but we hope to get him back in about a month or so, and he'll win a Brownlow one day. There you go. There's a prediction.
Yeah, exactly. I think most journos and things like that are predicting that from Butters.
Cool.
Probably. Oh, that's what I'm just assuming from how good he was in consistent form.
Yeah. No, he's very special.
Now, I want to know what your opinion is on who's an athlete of your family, best athlete.
Who do you reckon?
Oh,
have you seen pictures of Kane with his top off?
No.
Looks like he hasn't eaten for 3 years. So we're very different. He's into his marathon running, long distance running. I don't think he's ever lifted a weight in his life. If you ask me who was a better athlete, I'm going to have to say myself.
Yeah. Didn't he run a marathon around his tennis court or something?
Yeah, he did. I went to watch that. That was for charity. I can't remember which charity, but he was really sore. It didn't look like much fun at all, and it took him a while to recover from that, just because you're constantly going in that same direction.
You can't run around one thing for that long.
No, I don't know how he did it, but credit to him. It raised a fair bit of money for a charity that I can't remember the name of. But yeah, we're different, myself and Kane, not only in the way we look, the way we train, in all forms of life, but really proud to be his brother.
If you could go out for dinner with anyone, who would it be?
Ooh. Anyone. Eddie Vedder, lead singer of Pearl Jam.
Yep. Why?
Oh, they were my favourite band when I was growing up. I was really into the grunge music scene. And Pearl Jam were my favourite band at that stage. And he's interesting. I like the way he speaks. I like his look and take on life. So that would be a big moment. I actually shook his hand once, so that's my claim to fame. Shook his hand in a pool hall in Glenelg before one of their concerts. So I'll probably pick him.
Where do you keep your tomato sauce? In the fridge or in the cupboard?
Yeah. Well, I think it mixes in, like, ideally I would keep it in the cupboard, but it goes off quickly. So I don't like the cold tomato sauce, but it goes off quicker if you don't. So I think it's in the fridge at the moment.
Yeah. Now I believe you're sort of the runner for Port Adelaide at the moment. What's that like to run around the ground and get the messages out for Ken Hinckley?
You're not out there as much as you once were. There's a limit. You can only take 2 messages out per quarter in play. You go out after goals and stuff like that. So I love the involvement with the players. So you're in the rooms with them warming up. A lot of them have got pre-game rituals that involves me, kicking balls. It's a really small role, but Charlie Dixon, I'm really close to. So we have a lot of kicks pre-game, same as Robbie Gray. So you're a very, very small part of the game, but I like that interaction with the players and still being out there on the field. So
with that, what's your perspective, I guess, on the new men on the mark rule and how that affects the game? Obviously, sort of new, more 50-metre penalties being given away.
Yeah, I think our guys have adapted pretty well to it. I don't think we've given away too many 50s from memory, but it's definitely opened the game up. It's a lot more free-flowing. The guys are gassed when they come off, like on the bench. There's, because rotations have been cut as well, so the boys are absolutely spent by the end of the game. But I think it's a better spectacle for the average footy fan than it was in previous years. Now
there's sort of more pressure on players that they're not going to fake an injury now because they got the injury sub. Because you fake an injury, you're going off for the rest of the game.
Well, we're getting too many injuries as it is at the moment. So we've had to choose between who's more seriously injured than the other. We had a game on the weekend against Carlton, and Hamish Hartland and Dan Houston were both really badly injured, and you would have subbed any of them if it was just them injured, but we had to choose who was the most injured, and it's been like that the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're a bit battered and bruised at the moment, but not too many boys want to get that subbed out, obviously.
What would be your best advice for someone who wants to become a successful AFL player or coach like yourself?
You got to think that I really struggled when I first got to Port, and it took me a couple of years to realise the work ethic that's required, and then I bought into doing extra sessions and training harder than anyone else. So that's what made me successful. So I think you've got to do that. You've got to go out of your way to do extras and more than anyone else. You can't just do the bare minimum, because that won't get you anywhere. And if I had my time again, I'd be a better teammate. I'd think about the team, more than myself, and put the team and my teammates, before the success of the individual. You can become a bit selfish when you're just involved in the team environment, but the thing that's changed over the last couple of years is just the focus on being a better teammate and thinking about what you can do for others rather than yourself. So I know it gets said a lot, but at my time again, that's what I do.
Just a couple last questions. What does your sort of weekly schedule look like?
So if you start on the weekend, generally one day is taken up with a power game and the other day taken up with a Magpies game. So this week we play Saturday night and then Sunday night. So the weekends are full. Monday, Tuesday are big days at the club. Monday, more reviews of the games past on the weekend. Tuesday, getting back into training and thinking about the upcoming game. We get Wednesdays off. Thursday's the main session of the week, and then Friday's a bit of a lighter sort of captain's run type session. So they're busy weeks, but you do get that one day off Wednesday, which is great, where you can just sort of chill at home with the family and catch up on things you need to do.
Thanks, Chad, for coming on the podcast today and putting aside some of your time out of your busy schedule to come on and have a chat.
Thanks for having me, mate, and good luck with the rest of your podcast. You're doing a great job. Well done.
Thanks, Chad. Stay tuned, everyone, for some more Sporting Max.